Right. So, taking our discussion further, which we did earlier, where I shared the different types of results or different types of deliverables which we provide when we do the drone survey, I would just share some of the case studies, which will make it more clear that how these deliverables and how these results are being used by various professionals and consultants and experts. So, I have taken five case studies over here. The first two case study, like the water flow analysis at Malad Water Reservoir and the flood analysis in the surrounding area of Krishna River. These two are mainly relating to the hydrology analysis. And here what we tried is basically to provide much more information to an expert, hydrology expert, who can make better decision and planning based on those inputs. Moving to the next two, a survey of land in a hilly area of Mahabaleshwar, and then mapping of more than 6,000 trees in a village near Nasik city. So these two were very typical example where the accessibility to the location was very limited, and these locations were very hilly terrain areas. So it becomes quite easy for us to do a drone survey because we don't have to access the entire land under survey. And the last one is an identification of distress area at Worldly Water Reservoir. So I'll just go through one by one. So before moving to the case studies, I would just want to put a disclaimer over here that whatever I'm gonna share or whatever I'm gonna speak about different case studies is my individual opinion. So please do not form any use this as an evidence or any against any case studies or any specific project from your side. So as I said, like the first case is a Malad water reservoir. So this is basically an area which is there. It's in a hillock, this reservoir. And last year, in the month of July, there was an incident which happened in this particular case. So two of those retaining walls, they collapsed, and because of that, there was a loss of human lives. So we were basically hired by the consultants to first do an contour survey, and second, they also wanted to do a water flow analysis that from where all the waters contributed to the damage of these walls. So if you see, like definitely we provided the contour survey over here, which is superimposed on the ortho map, which I've already shared in the previous session. So here we specifically did a water flow analysis. Although since this is just a screenshot, you may not be able to see all the streams in this particular area. But yeah, these all areas, the stream lines are coming towards this side. So that's how we identified these two locations, and these pins are basically the place where the wall collapsed. So in these particular areas, we did a simulation also for how much water contributed to the damage of the walls. So if you just see this simulation, you can make out that the water is rising over here. So based on this simulation, we can make a scenario that how and what would have happened on that particular incidents, and how this wall got damaged. Very similar to this, but on a much bigger scale, we did a flood analysis. So this is done with collaboration. This is one more like a POC project along with the government authorities. So this site is a Sangli location district, where along with the help of the municipal department, we did a flood analysis. So they already had the hydrology expert in their team, and they wanted certain more inputs, and they wanted to understand how drone can be more useful to analyze the flood situation in that particular area. So as you all know that Sangli is lying at the basins of Krishna River. So in this case, as you see, like the first result which we provided is the ortho mosaic. Second one is the contour, as this is a screening shot of the entire district. This looks very small, and you will not be able to make out the contours. But from this dimension, you can see that we actually provided a contour of a level difference of 1 meter. So in this case, what we did is we identified the red zone and a blue zone and a green zone. We actually categorized all the areas into three floodline zones, depending on how that will be impact when there is a raise in water level. So this was a small simulation. If you see over here, we are mentioning the level of water over here, and once we increase the water level, how this entire area gets impacted. So this is just a simulation over there. Now through this simulation, what we also did is, like, we also mapped the entire properties in the surrounding area using um, so using the revenue maps. And then we also mentioned that which all properties will be impacted because of this floodline situation. So this was an
Yeah,
addition.
just to add your Rajiv,
Yes, I can hear.
is an overlap of the Satbara. That is what you want to say?
Yes, yeah. So we,
Eventual extraction of that plot of area. So that makes it easy for a person to identify, right?
very
Ownership.
true. Very true.
Right,
So
right.
it becomes
Okay.
easier in case if there is any compensation to be given, or it can be any actions which require to be done after that. It can be used in the disaster management as well.
Right.
Right. So moving to the next one, like as I said, we actually covered an area which is there in Mahabaleshwar. It's very hilly terrain, and the client wanted to actually develop that project into a commercial project, keeping the natural ecology intact in the surrounding area. And that project was very unique in the sense that almost 30% area is only area which was physically accessible when we did the survey. So remaining almost like 30 35 60 65% area were not accessible. And as I mentioned that we can capture the data, but we don't have to actually access the entire area physically, so we can just be at one place and we can capture the data. That way we actually captured the entire area which was not even inaccessible, which was not even accessible. So in this particular case, I just want to highlight, like, from this map you can see the elevations. So it was so much different. So if you see this elevation difference, it was around 250 meters. So it was, this site was exactly at the slope of a hill. So this kind of information is very difficult when you try to do it through traditional method. So moving to the next one, this is a project which we did for an NGO who is doing an afforestation in the village of near Nasik. So what they basically required from us as a deliverable is they wanted to evidence this afforestation so that they can produce this in front of government and support or seek their help as well. And they also use this contour survey, like, so this is the entire area. And like these dots, if you can see from this screenshot, these dots were basically the trees which were planted over there. So we did the entire mapping of trees over here, and it was more than 6,000 trees which we could map in this case. And along with the mapping of tree with the respective coordinates, we could also identify their height. So we classified the entire trees in 5 categories, considering the very small and the bigger as the lower level and the ceiling. We converted into 5 categories. So that way, it was quite evidence for them. Now this was a little unique project, and this can be applied on a much bigger scale. So this was given again through a government body where we have to identify a distress area. So distress area was nothing but an area which is more susceptible for landslide kind of a situation. So they wanted to take a preventive measures of kind of a developing a retaining wall or a fencing of that particular area so that the landslide can be avoided. So these are again our basic deliverables: the ortho map which is there, and the contour map superimposed on the ortho map. So you can see these two maps as usual, where I have shown you on other cases as well. Now what we did is we actually did the hillshed analysis and flow direction. So flow direction was the water flow direction analysis, and we combined these two maps to make a hybrid map like this. So through this hybrid map, they can actually identify that which all areas are much more susceptible or potentially riskier for landslide. and accordingly they can start the work of fencing them or creating a retaining wall against them quicker. Right. So as I said, like, these projects, if you see in a silo, definitely this looks like a small project. But if you understand the final intention of the professional or the experts who have used them, this can definitely be extended to a much, much larger scale in coming future. Yes, Nidhi, over to you.
Yes. So that was wonderful sharing of case studies with different purposes, I would say, Rajiv.
Yeah,
What was interesting was how people are using they can use mapping as a tool to fight disasters in this age of climate change. I have some couple of questions for you, Rajiv.
definitely, please.
What is one thing which you think that this technology can, combat climate change? What can we do? How do we use it for certain events? Like, a couple of days we had a cyclone in the Arabian Sea. So, could we
See,
have planned for certain studies beforehand in these coastal regions using drone as a mapping technology and have some interventions?
so definitely, Nidhi, if you ask me, I may not be the expert to comment on this, but definitely what kind of a result or what kind of inputs we provide, various experts can actually work on or kind of use those deliverables or use those inputs and do a better planning. So if you see in two of the cases, we actually did a flood-like situation and did the simulation. Now
Correct.
consider that
Yes.
you can always evacuate the red line areas which are more susceptible for flooding. Similarly, like,
Correct.
you can always identify the landslide situation and take care of those situations well in advance. So I mean, this discussion can go for hours and hours, because definitely, like, this technology is gonna change the future of how we actually look at different things, either as a planning or a monitoring or even taking steps in case of a disaster.
Right. So, yes, that will be an insightful. I mean, if we can get simulation studies and then make decisions, it will be an interesting uh, thing for, I would say, planners. Second, can you share one activity or idea, if implemented, which could be a game changer for government with the specific skill set you have?
See, there are multiple things, but if you ask me with respect to environment or the natural ecology, I would say that,
Yeah,
when we can survey an area or a like, a project which is there in hilly terrain, and that can be actually used for multiple purposes. Like, if
right.
you see that in Maharashtra there are so many plateaus and hill like areas. So consider that in, I mean, I have read certain reports where in foreign people are using drone to identify, execute and monitor like, landscape, or you can call it as a terraced agriculture. So there are so many lands which can be developed similar to that, like, keeping the ecology intact and then using those lands for more and more vegetation and afforestation.
Yeah, that's an interesting study which we could try it in India with either the
Yes,
forest department. Yeah.
yes.
Thank you so much for Rajiv joining us.